Welcome to a pivotal moment in the world of broadcast as we proudly present the Men's Mental Health Show featuring the renowned Larry Mabry in collaboration with the Maassen Group. This essential exploration of men's mental health wouldn't be possible without the invaluable support of Rainier Avenue Radio World. Now, let's dive into this crucial conversation with Larry Mabry and the Maassen Group. Your mental well-being matters. Here's Larry Mabry.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to this beautiful December 4th, 2023, looking at men's mental health today. Last week, we spoke about covering anger, or actually how to manage anger. And today, I wanted us to dive into that as we get started. So real quickly, I wanted to share this particular video. Someone else mentioned to me that it's always good to have comedy whenever we deal with stressful situations. So I wanted to kind of share this. See if you guys can relate to this. Hold on one second here.
Ties into patriotism.
Is there a problem here, sir?
I don't think so.
Can you come to the back of the plane with me so we can have a talk?
But talk about what? There's not a problem. The stewardess just keeps...
Flight attendant.
The flight attendant keeps... I am calm. What is it with you people?
You people.
Oh, now wait a minute. I don't mean you people. I mean you people.
Sir, I will not tolerate any racist behavior on the plane. This is a very difficult time for our country.
I know that. I'm not a racist. I just want to watch the movie.
I'm only going to say this one more time, sir. Calm down.
I'm calm!
Okay, so I think I'm gonna play it one more time because I don't know if you guys heard the beginning when the stewardess kind of stepped up. So I'm gonna try it one more time here so we can hear the first part because that was pretty important. One moment here. All right, let's try it now.
Your voice to me, sir.
I wasn't raising my voice.
Okay, just calm down.
I am calm. I just want my headset.
Sir, our country is going through a very difficult time right now, and if you're not going to cooperate...
I don't know where a headset ties into patriotism.
Is there a problem here, sir?
I don't think so.
Can you come to the back of the plane with me so we...
Stewardess just keeps...
Flight attendant.
The flight attendant keeps ignoring me when I ask...
Calm down.
I am calm. What is it with you people?
You people.
Oh, now wait a minute. I don't mean you people. I mean you people.
Sir, I will not tolerate any racist behavior on the plane. This is a very difficult time for our country.
I know that. I'm not a racist. I just want to watch the movie.
I'm only going to say this one more time, sir. Calm down.
I'm calm!
All right, so for those people who saw that, basically, we had Adam Sandler from the old school movie Anger Management, where he was having an altercation. Basically, he was asking for the headset, and it kind of got out of control. And I thought that was pretty funny. So I just wanted to kind of share that. How many people have been in that situation, right, where you're doing everything you can to kind of make things happen, and all of a sudden you look up and you're caught up in a situation. You're wondering what's going on here. And so I wanted to kind of address that today. All right, here we go. Okay, so what did you notice for those individuals that checked out the video? What did you notice in the video? I thought it was very interesting that if you notice, he was pretty calm when he asked for the headphones, and the stewardess was like, or flight attendant, as the one character mentioned, you know what? Calm down. And so a lot of times you may have situations where people are saying calm down, and in your mind you're like, well, hold up, I'm calm. But sometimes if they say it over and over again, you notice that you tend to kind of build up a little bit of frustration, right? And so what was he rude in that situation? From the interaction that you noticed, was he actually rude? Did you notice he was rude? I'm curious to see, for those individuals, if you guys can chime in. Looks like I got a few people here. Feel free to chime in. Did you think he was rude at all? Okay, go ahead and communicate here on the Facebook. I didn't think he was rude, but maybe she thought he was rude, so she asked him to calm down. Also, too, at what point did the anger come up, right? and he ended up getting tased, right? At what point did that happen? All right. So I want us to kind of talk about that. I'm going to kind of move on. Today, we're going to look at the anger iceberg, unveiling the depths of emotion and understanding the hidden dimensions of our anger. Okay. And you may say, well, anger, what do you mean? Well, anger basically is, and you know what? I want to see if I can make this slide bigger because I can't see it. Actually, you know what? Let me move on a little bit. Anger basically manifests in the various ways, ranging from mild irritation to intense rage. Okay, it's complex emotion that can be triggered by a variety of factors, including personal experiences, perceived injustices in that situation, or even biochemical imbalances. And while anger itself is not necessarily negative, how it is expressed and managed can have significant effects on both individuals and in our interpersonal relationships. Okay. So learning to understand and effectively managing our anger is an important aspect of our emotional intelligence, but it can also contribute to healthier, happier interpersonal relationships. And although anger is natural, it's important to realize how we handle the anger. All right, let's move on. So for those individuals that can see here, I have an anger iceberg, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So basically, if you notice the iceberg, you look on the actual top part, you'll see where the water is. And this is basically how we express it on the outside, where we kind of show the world. But underneath, you notice what you may be hiding from either the world or yourself. And you notice here we have feelings of being jealous, right? Grief. Maybe you're overwhelmed by some situation. Maybe you're lonely. Maybe you're in a nervous situation or annoyed or feeling guilty about the way you handle the situation. I would say for me, I like to keep it 100. Insecurity sometimes could be a little challenge, right? So anyway, we all have these particular emotions. And even though, if you notice, look at the iceberg for those individuals that could see. If you notice, the top of the iceberg is just like, I would say the size of maybe, I'm trying to see a good analogy. Looking at the top of it, I would say it's probably the size of the cap size of a roof, right? If you notice the roof, how the roof kind of has a triangular shape, that would be like the top part of the anger iceberg, but underneath would be the whole foundation of the house plus the house itself. So if you notice, we actually hide a lot more underneath than we actually express. And that's powerful. And so I want to kind of give a little bit of a backstory with that. So for those individuals who are parents, you may be in a situation where you ask your child, hey, I want you to clean up your room, right? And they clean up the room. And once they clean up the room, you'll have like a particular treat or reward for them. And let's say it takes them, let's say a good 20, 25 minutes. They go knock it out. And then you go back and check in with them and see, well, did they get it done? You check, open up the door. You look, you're like, yes. Okay. Little Susie, little Bobby, he went ahead and took care of the room. But all of a sudden, you peer over and you go to the bed, you pull it up. And what do you notice? Well, you notice all these things hidden underneath, right? The old wrappers, the old crusty, maybe box of pizza that they had or something, those things that we hide, right? And so I want to kind of give that perspective, right? So a lot of times, and you kind of know that we did that back in the day, right? But anyway, a lot of people, sometimes we hide these particular things and we can only hide them for so long before they get to a point where they just get enormous and out of control. So today I want us to kind of look at that. Okay. All right. So here we also have visible expressions of anger, and it could actually show up as, believe it or not, sarcasm. A lot of times people may be sarcastic to try to hide certain things are going, but actually express it another way. You could sweat when you're angry, right? That's one way that people can express themselves. Another thing that I noticed too, as far as a visible expression of anger, is outbursts, right? If somebody has like a temper tantrum, right? And a lot of times you may see this in the store where maybe a little son or little daughter asks mom for something. Mom or dad is like, not today. And all of a sudden you notice the child just kind of erupts into a roar, rage, hitting the fist on the ground or the floor. Hey, I want this type of thing, right? Or anxiety, right? A lot of times you may see people express themselves through that as well, or failed relationships, right? Or not feeling as though you're being heard, that could be another form that people may express themselves, right? This is visible forms of anger. All right, let's move on. So now we're going to look at the hidden dimensions. And you may say, well, what are some other hidden dimensions we may have in anger? Well, what about underlining emotions, hurt, fear, sadness? What if you've had like a breakup? Or what if you had some trauma from growing up? That can actually be a form of anger. To actually keep it 100 with you guys, I remember I had a situation where back in the day when I had a lot of property, I was selling some property, and someone offered me a price to the property, and I was like, man, that's a little bit below what I wanted, right? And I knew I could have got a little bit more, but I just, I was like, let's just get the deal done. And then I actually went for a lower price. And I was like, man, I should have went a little bit higher for that, right? So sometimes it could be choices that we make, unmet expectations, right? And being easy on ourselves so we don't actually be as angry as we need to be. Okay. Or personal history and experiences, right? These could be certain things that we've experienced that cause anger in our lives. All right, let's move on. Okay, so now I want to share a particular case study or situation I actually had with my dad. Well, during COVID in 2020, my personal situation, my dad was, he had a situation where he was in the hospital. And when he was in the hospital, the doctors, basically, they reached out to me. And during this time, my dad and I weren't on the best of terms. And they reached out to me because I'm the oldest. And they said, hey, you're the oldest son in line. Your dad is basically in a situation where they have to amputate his leg. And I'm like, really? Like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So, and they're like, well, basically, if we don't amputate his leg, then he won't live. And I was kind of angry with him with certain situations, but I realized that I needed to kind of work on that. But I was also a little kind of perplexed with the situation because I still wanted to just go see him to have a conversation with him. Because at some point I wasn't quite believing the doctor, right? Like I wanted to actually see my dad. Like, I'm like, wait a minute, this can't be happening. And so in that situation, I called my mom. I was like, yo, mom, I need to talk to you about something. She's like, what's up? Well, she was like, well, you got two choices. And I said, really? She said, yeah. She said, basically, if you don't cut off the leg, then basically he dies. Right? I said, yeah, you're right. She's like, so, I mean, either, you could just have him keep the leg, but he'll basically be alive, or cut the leg and basically he'll be able to survive. It's pretty simple. And I thought about that. I said, you know what, mom, you're right. You're right. But because of the anger and the frustration that I was feeling within myself, it was tough to make that choice. And so I kind of reached out and I thought about it. So I ended up calling the doctor back. I said, hey, doc, let's go ahead and amputate the leg, which was very challenging for me to do in that situation. But we took care of that. And then my dad, after he healed, he called me back and he wasn't a very happy camper. He wasn't happy at all. In the beginning, he wasn't happy. However, after a few months, he and I kind of reconciled and he called me back and he said, you know what, son, I realized that was a very difficult choice to make, but I appreciate you making that choice because you saved my life. And so I'm bringing this story to you guys because sometimes, even though you're angry, if you face that and you handle that and take the higher road, you'll basically have some, I would like to call, good benefits from that situation. And my dad and I are pretty cool now. So we worked through it. We're in a lot better situation. I'm glad he's alive. We joke, we laugh, that type of thing. But I just want to share that for those individuals out here who may be having those struggles of getting through those anger or dealing with anger, frustration, and hurt. Okay, so just wanted to share that. Okay, so think about a time when you may not have expressed yourself in the best way. How did that make you feel? So those individuals that want to chime in, feel free to express. How did that make you feel when you're in a situation where you express yourself in the best way? Were you frustrated? Were you mad at yourself? What are the things that you could do to begin to address those feelings now that you may have? Maybe you need some support. to someone to help you through that, right? Feel free to reach out to us here at the Maassen Group. But also, too, I want to kind of take this time to put a shout out to Rainier Avenue Radio World. They appreciate them allowing me this opportunity to connect with the community, as well as to share with mental health. And think about those times that you've had to express yourself, and maybe it wasn't the best way, right? How did you work through that? Or maybe you still need help with working through that, and that's okay too. All right, so now I want to look at some communication strategies. And with that example that I gave earlier, one thing I did was I knew that I was at an impasse if I went forward, because the emotion I was feeling, the anger I was feeling at that time, I wasn't going to probably make the best choice. And I knew enough that I didn't want to take my dad's life, even though I was going through some things. So the first thing that I would communicate is give yourself some grace, right? Step back in that situation, give yourself some grace, and seek out those who can help you in communicating effectively. So in that situation, I reached out to my mom, and she was kind of like the voice of reason, because I was emotional in that moment, and helped me through that situation. So make sure you communicate with somebody who is kind of detached from that situation, and they're looking at it from a level perspective to kind of help you through that. And the importance of effective communication is addressing the underlying issues. And I knew that my dad and I had some things we had to work through, but I also applied the next one, which is active listening and empathy. I listened to what my mom was saying. I realized that at the end of the day, the choice I made basically I would be able to understand that choice the rest of my life. And I did not want to make a choice that would be catastrophic in my family heritage. Okay. All right. Moving on. Also, too, with active listening and empathy, this does need practice. It's not something that you can just do just off the rip, right? It's something that you have to practice. And what does that mean? Well, that basically means that when people are talking, you're not gearing up to talk at them. You're actually listening to them, right? To the point where you're able to repeat what they're saying. And a lot of times in those situations where you're angry, you might have to take a deep breath, calm down, be in the moment, and then basically say things like, so what I hear you say is, and repeat kind of what they're saying to make sure you understand that, right? And also expressing feelings and needs, right? Express it in a calm way. That way you're knowing that you're balanced, you're more understanding, and you're patient. Okay, let's move on. Okay, another thing too that I would recommend as far as dealing with anger is mindfulness and self-awareness. And people may say, well, what is this? Well, I would say, as I have been on my anger journey, what I've noticed is a lot of times things are going on in your own mind that other people may not be privy to. So what I noticed is the self-talk that I was having with myself. That's the thing that I can control, because you can't control other people. Your job is not to control other people. Your job is to control yourself. So if you are putting yourself in a situation where you're always being mindful of your thoughts, right? So if you notice that, okay, you might need some time, step away, you noticing that your temperature is changing. I would say a few weeks ago, we talked about cognitive distortions. I believe I've talked about that before, making sure you notice those particular thoughts that aren't your thoughts, right? And reframe those thoughts, right? Reframe those thoughts and take a breath and be in the present moment, right? And sometimes you need to step away, right? So practice being in the moment as much as possible. And I wanted to give this activity too that was very successful for me, as well as several clients that I recommended. So, a lot of times, let's say you're driving in traffic, dealing with the craziness in traffic, and rather than getting frustrated, you come to a light. And in the light, when you go to a light, in that moment, take a deep breath and think about what you're grateful for in that moment. right? Rather than looking around, being upset with, being busy in traffic. Just think about how grateful that you are. The fact that you have a vehicle, the fact that you're alive, right? Be present in that moment. And if you do that enough times, you'll notice that as you pull up to the lights, they won't last as long because you're in the present moment. So when you're in that present moment, you kind of lose time. So when you do that more and more, you realize that actually, the things that you thought were really important to get attached to really aren't that important. And then it actually go off into other situations where, let's say you're dealing with somebody and they're frustrating. Just be in that moment and just kind of allow things to be and let it just kind of roll off you. Another thing too is journaling. This is a really good one. Journaling for self-reflection. And this allows you to challenge those cognitive distortions that we spoke about a few weeks ago. And when you journal, what I recommend is just focus on the one thought that you notice that kind of got you off your square, right? So let's say that one thought got you off your square, you got really ticked off. Maybe write, okay, what was it that upset me in this situation? What can I do better in this situation? Okay, what's the highest form to take in this situation, right? Just those three things. If you do that every day or every so often, you'll notice that you change your thought process, okay? The last one is seeking professional help when needed. This is important because sometimes you might not have the skill set. Maybe you grew up in a family where all you knew was distorted, toxic type of relationships, right? And this isn't judgment. This is just, it is what it is. And so maybe you need some support to kind of help you work through that. I know for me, I realized back when I was in the educational realm, as I moved to different classrooms and I moved to different cities and different situations, and when I went abroad, everyone was so different. And so being in those different environments taught me a different way of being. And so I realized that, hey, it might be good to kind of talk to other people that have different perspectives. Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to recap. So basically we covered anger, iceberg, which is basically we talked about the visible anger, things that we see on the outside. And then we talked about the hidden things, which a lot of times they may come out in situations if we don't deal with them. How do you handle those? Well, we also talked about some support that you may need to kind of help you work through that, right? Also, emotions that we may not express but are present with us. And if we are going through life for a long period of time and we don't address those hidden things, unfortunately, what happens is we feel like we're kind of going in a continuous pattern or what they call the rat race. And if you need help, feel free to reach out and we'll feel free to help you out here at the Maassen Group, myself or some other of our trusty people to assist you with that. And sometimes you might need some encouragement, right? To explore the depths of your emotion, because maybe you grew up in a family where you try to express yourself and it was shut down, right? And so you create those habits where you don't express yourself because you don't feel like you're being heard. And so it's important to practice that, to speak up, to have that voice, and keep being the best you could be. Okay? All right. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap it up here shortly. But before we wrap it up, I want to say once again, I want to thank our people here at Rainier Avenue Radio World for doing what they can do to assist us with mental health care for men, as well as any other individuals who feel this is necessary. And our next guest is, you may have heard some rumbling in the background here. I have my friend next to me, Dr. Tracy Harrell. She'll be here shortly with Living Powerfully, or Better Together and Living Powerfully. And next week, by the way, we will be discussing setting boundaries, because I think that's important. How do we set our boundaries? How do we make sure we take care of ourselves with our boundaries? How do we make sure what we need to do as far as boundaries in our relationship? Okay, guys. So without further ado, I wish you guys a good well. And once again, I pass it over to our friend, Dr. Tracy Harrell, with Better Together and Living Powerfully.